Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So, just welcome to another video discussion. I'm with Ken, another course mate. The main outcome for this, it's something that we've been thinking about discussing within our first few discussions that we've had. And the main outcome we're going to be discussing critically why coaching expertise is important within the coaching process. So, first things first, for me and for you, what do you think? What characteristics or what kind of behaviours do you think a coach should be displaying to display a level of expertise in terms of anything at all, really?
So, obviously it's contextually independent, but the coach should always look professional. If
Yeah,
they've got kit for that specific sport, for that specific team, they should be wearing it really.
yeah,
They should, they shouldn't show up drunk or anything like that,
yeah,
or hungover.
yeah,
They should, just like their body language, it should always be positive. They shouldn't be
yeah,
sitting leaning against all of their arms crossed,
yeah,
because that'll make people think that they just don't want to be there.
yeah. See, for me, I would argue that that is maybe potentially more professional practice
Yeah.
as opposed to coaching expertise because when you think of expertise in anything, it could be any industry, maybe cooking or something, you see the top people aren't ones that are just an average Joe that are just cooking at home. They're at the top level. And to me, expertise is associated with how effective someone is or how good they are at what they do. So, I mean, if I was someone that was maybe had a great body language, that wouldn't make me an expert coach sometimes. It potentially would just mean I know what the correct behaviours are as a coach. But on the other end, to be displayed as an expert coach, you would have to have them characteristics. I mean, you are right with that. But I don't know, for me, knowledge is a big thing. So, like we've mentioned, the whole types of knowledge, so tacit, procedural, and declarative. But tacit knowledge is one of the most important, where you're displaying a level of expertise through being able to think on your feet, like whether you've got, I don't know, you're 1-0 down in the 90th minute in your football match and you decide to bring on a player that you think can bring the game back for you. And that decision you're probably going to make in like the space of a minute sometimes. And I mean, novice coaches sometimes you could argue wouldn't know how to do that because obviously, but in order to do that, you'd probably have to have a strong knowledge of the game before you even think about making that decision. I don't know, just other things that you'd think in terms of anything that's important to display expertise.
Um, well, like you said, knowledge is obviously very important.
Yeah,
Say maybe your demeanour.
yeah, definitely.
If you go about setting yourself in the right way,
Yeah,
then the players are going to take you seriously.
yeah. See, I agree with that. And another thing is that, like I mentioned with knowledge, if you've got that knowledge, it's brilliant, but how you communicate that with your demeanour. So you could be one of the most intelligent coaches and you could know the game through and through, maybe more than Pep Guardiola or someone like that. But if you don't have that communication to communicate that knowledge, then you're not an expert coach and you arguably you're just kind of wasting your time if you're not communicating what you know. But again, like I said, that comes through experience. If you'd agree, where you're becoming a better coach through being experienced. And it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years. It just depends. Like you said, it's contextually dependent. But I don't know, a definition of it. How would you define coaching effectiveness? How would you put it into context in your coaching?
Coaching effectiveness.
Yeah, or coaching expertise. Sorry, not effectiveness.
Um, Probably say basically, coach knows what they're doing. If I was to say a person
Yeah,
came to mind, would be probably Stu Wilkinson,
yeah,
because he knows absolutely loads about coaching.
yeah,
He could talk to you for 24 hours straight about coaching
definitely.
and not run out of things to say.
Yeah,
Um, so knowledge is one of the most important things.
yeah,
And it's like you said, it's how you apply that knowledge, like your
yeah,
communication, knowing when to apply it, things like that.
Yeah, because it's almost like when you said knowing when to apply that knowledge, that relates back to tacit knowledge because if you've got that knowledge, you've got to be adaptable with that knowledge. So using it in the right scenarios and right environment rather than simply just saying, oh, what you know about the sport, like putting it into practice because it is philosophy to practice, but rather than just simply saying, oh, I know how many players there are in the German Football League. That's great knowledge, but you have to put some knowledge into practice, like by thinking on the spot. But as well, like, would you say coach education on like with other matters? Would you say coach education contributes towards your extra expertise as a coach? So, I mean, you could be a level 4 qualified football coach or any, maybe not just football, any sport in the world. Just because you're a level 4 qualified coach, does that necessarily mean you're an amazing coach?
No, definitely not. Personally, I see as if you completely novice coach, you've never really done coaching before, then the NGB awards, absolutely great.
Yeah.
But like when you're at uni, like me and you are, kind of a bit useless. We're only getting them so they're on the CV, so we're viable because you don't learn anything on them from what we've learned from uni. And like I said, just because you're a level 4, like UA3 coach, doesn't mean you're a good coach.
No, definitely.
Like you might learn something on the course, but if you don't apply it, then it's not.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about coach education being relevant to coach expertise is the fact that it gives you practical competence as a coach in some senses because throughout your coach education, even in your level 2 level, you're being observed. Someone's observing your coach. So obviously you've got to have a reasonable level of competence in a coaching environment. But I mean, just because you need that, it doesn't mean that you're an expert coach because it could just be the most basic session in the world and they're just looking to tick you off for being competent. But I mean, an expert coach shouldn't just be competent, they should be more than competent. I mean, maybe critical of their abilities because what we're doing now, we're trying to be critical with everything we're doing. But I mean, there's studies now, like Ericsson 2008, he's just said that learning by doing is a big form of gathering knowledge. And it goes back to experiential learning, because obviously coach education does contribute to it, but just going out and doing it yourself, getting practical experience. But it's the same though in the job world. Would you not agree? Where nowadays, like employers, even just in the employment industry, where employers aren't just looking for how much you know, they're looking at what you know. Not what you know, but how you apply it. So, I mean, if both of you and me now applied for a coaching role anywhere, if I had, say, a first class honours degree, but I had 10 hours experience coaching, and you had a 2-2, and you had maybe 200 hours coaching, and you were level 2 qualified, and I was level 0, they're obviously going to be inclined to choose the one that's probably more experienced. But, I mean, experience for me is just experience and knowledge go hand in hand. And that comes back to reflective practice, doesn't it? Where if you've done a session and your session was pants, then reflecting can give you that feedback and cognition, thinking about it, thinking about what went well about that session. But, I mean,
experience is a big one because I mean, I've learned stuff about coaching from uni, and I have learned a little bit from the courses. I'd say the main bulk of knowledge that I've learned is from doing over 1,000 hours of coaching. Because before, like, even with armed with the knowledge I learned for like the first few months at uni and from a level 1 football, I still didn't really know what I was doing when I started coaching. But just getting chucked in at the deep end and coaching and doing it has made me grow and find out really not how you're supposed to coach. There's not one way to know how to coach, but like how to make my sessions effective, fun and enjoyable. So.
I mean, another thing though is to demonstrate coaching effectiveness, it's not just the coach that has to demonstrate that sometimes, it's the athletes that you're coaching because, I mean, nowadays in elite level football, coaches' jobs securities are based on the performances of players sometimes, and to be honest, it shouldn't be that way sometimes. But I mean, to be classed as an expert coach, sometimes the win percentages of your athletes can determine how your expertise as a coach. I mean, nowadays you see managers, it's common that they're getting sacked for not winning 3 games in a row, and I mean, they have to be given a break sometimes.
If you think was it last season? What was it? The West Ham manager got sacked after 4 games. Frank de Boer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's like, if your athletes aren't winning every game, the coach isn't wholly responsible for that, because sometimes athletes can just have bad performances, and I mean, a coach their full responsibility isn't to just make sure they're an amazing player. It's a two-way thing. Like, there has to be an input from the athlete, or not just at elite level though, even at grassroots level, like where we coach. It's important for the athletes to have some input and their motivation towards what they're doing. But not just performance, maybe satisfaction of doing it, because there's no satisfaction for them playing them. I mean, no, exactly, and it's the same with our role as a coach. Like, again, with our philosophy is that if we're not enjoying what we're doing, then why the hell are we doing it?
Yeah.
And yeah, but definitely, when you said at the start the whole professional practice, like being a coach that's kind of got good body language, that definitely does contribute to it, but it's not the be all end all of it. I mean, knowledge, for me, I mean, your body language is important, but I think your knowledge is more important. Your knowledge, because if you've got your body language, that can be adjusted, or not just your body language, your demeanor as a coach, that can be adjusted through work. It's not static. But sometimes knowledge is just so difficult to acquire, and it goes back to epistemology, where the process of knowing what you know, and also how knowledge is acquired, where do you learn what you learn through interacting with others, or do you just learn it through just one specific method? And I mean, it's interesting. Like, I could talk about this all day, to be quite frank, but
yeah, like you said, bringing up epistemology, it's not just knowing what you know, but it's like knowing what you don't know as well.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot you don't know. It doesn't matter how high level up you are, how professional you are, how elite you're considered.
Yeah.
I bet there's stuff we know that Pep Guardiola doesn't know.
Yeah, definitely.
And also there's going to be stuff he knows that we don't know.
Yeah.
There's going to be stuff that nobody knows yet that's going to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just constantly learning.
Yeah.
Finding out new things.
I think reflection, and I know it's not kind of not relevant to this discussion, but reflection again. A lot of studies, like there's millions now, that have just focused on reflection as an important process for developing coach knowledge, because sometimes if you've had that coaching session that's not gone brilliantly, reflection will facilitate your understanding of how to improve in future sessions. And I mean, making mistakes is good. Yeah. Mistakes, if you don't make mistakes, then how are you going to learn sometimes? And kids sometimes now as well, going back to kids, when you're coaching them, they fear and they cry when they make mistakes, but like, making mistakes is one of the best things you can do sometimes, especially when people are witnessing in them. So I mean, if a kid's had a shot and it's gone sky over the bar, then you're not going to take the mick out of him. You're gonna just come over to him and
how they can correct it.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to the other side of the spectrum, where some coaches don't even consider it expertise. Some coaches just prioritize that competition aspect of performance, where if they've missed that shot, then they're just going to rip their head off. But the most important thing is allowing them to make mistakes. And I mean, that's a big reason for dropout as well, where people are just coaches specifically and parents are just overemphasizing competition. And I mean, that's just not expertise in any way possible. But yeah, I mean, are there any other things you'd say that coaches contribute towards expertise in terms of anything? Just before we kind of conclude, really.
Well, it's just like really the two main things I'd say, which we've already brought up, is knowledge.
Definitely.
And knowing how to apply and knowing when to apply that knowledge.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you said, you can know the perfect ins and outs of football. If you can't apply that to your players, they're obviously they're not gonna learn.
Yeah.
And if you don't apply it at the right time, it's not like if I was coaching you and I told you like 5 or 6 things at once, you're going to take on maybe 2 or 3 of them and think about like the rest. You're like, what the hell's he on about? So
yeah. See, I think with knowledge as well, it's such a dynamic concept or process because there's so many different methods to learning, like the theories as well. So you know, social approach to learning, the social learning theory.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of guided discovery, experiential learning, which is a big method for learning for me, because getting practical experience as a coach, especially in the coaching industry, is just so important for coming up with new strategies to teach, and also just developing your understanding of the game that you coach. But I mean, just to finish off the 3 things we've identified, then we've got knowledge and the experience, and not just them two, we've also got the outcomes of your athletes that you're coaching. So what they're learning, how well they're doing what they're doing, because obviously that's determining, maybe not specifically determining how well you're doing, but it is contributing to how good you look as a coach and also how influential you are on them. So is there anything else you wanted to add on that? No? So that just concludes it, and we'll see you in the next blog video.